爆炸。
李敏瞬间起飞，秒了3个。
李敏的血线也很低，这边萨克拉斯重击直接是被圣灵长揪起来了，牛头直接跳舞是收掉了 No Place。
这边是伊萨已经形成了一个包夹姿势，但是德拉太跳了，这个太跳了，不把别人当人啊。
泰斯血不多，继续粘住，
感觉还是要死。
那这样的话，萨尔是要先死，罗斯应该也走不掉。
Day 2 of the Heroes Global Championship Eastern Clash, and it's the day where we find out who the top 4 teams in the East will be. I'm Gillyweed here once again with Wolf. Wolf, yesterday went pretty much as expected, maybe results-wise, but as far as the games and the drafts, very wild.
Yeah, we saw a lot of Zagara, Nidus kind of split push meta, especially out of the Chinese and Taiwanese teams. We were seeing a lot more Lucio play than I expected. I knew we were going to see Lucio, but I didn't think we were going to see him this often. We're also seeing him paired with other supports, so he's not being a solo support, but he's being paired with other supports perhaps because of his lack of cleanse. Sometimes to good effect, but most of the time it hasn't really worked out, but people are definitely experimenting with that double support right now.
Yeah, we saw Lucio in 6 games, won 3 of them, so sitting right at that 50% win rate. The games he won were either this one solo support game, I think that Tempest played them in, or L5 played him in, and then won the other 2 games paired with Tassadar. So none of those true, fully 2 double support games working out, at least just yet in the meta.
Yeah, definitely not, but I think Lucio has a good place in the meta right now, and he's really strong because of his extra mobility he grants to heroes. And if you're playing against a team that doesn't have that much CC, he's very strong there. And as we kind of figured out in day 1, even if you don't have cleanse, if you are Lucio, if you have, the mobility that he provides, sometimes you just avoid the CC altogether. You avoid those fights, and if your positioning is good enough, it just simply doesn't matter.
And he does, of course, have his sound wave to be able to knock people away. Try to see some of that counterplay that we even see from ETC when you see like the Muradin and ETC facing off, trying to be able to stall those things out. But notably for me too was that we only had 1 Tychus yesterday and no variants, so the patch really hitting those 2 heroes.
Yeah, I mean, I was making the joke back in the green room about basically Tychus being a melee hero now because he lost his range. I don't think we're going to be seeing much of him in this tournament. He failed pretty miserably when he was picked yesterday, and yeah, Varian completely absent. Does tell the tale that the lack of that, insta stun is really having quite an impact. But here, of course, are our teams for the tournament. We already broke this down for you guys yesterday, but if you missed it, we had 3 teams from China, 3 from Korea, and then, of course, 1 from Southeast Asia and Taiwan.
And unfortunately, the teams Resurgence from Southeast Asia and Team FaceCheck TFC from Taiwan have already been eliminated. We're going to have 2 more teams eliminated today. Here's the tournament bracket as we've seen so far. All 2-0s across the board yesterday. But like I said, a lot of these 2-0s weren't nearly clear-cut as maybe the numbers will tell you. We're going to kick things off with L5 versus Tempest, though, a rematch of one of the matches that we saw in HGC Korea.
That's right. It's going to be a really exciting one. It's very likely that we'll actually get to see the match between L5 and maybe like twice in this bracket if things go as you would expect. So that's going to be really exciting going into today and tomorrow. One of the things to talk about looking at this bracket, I really feel, is Tempest underperforming yesterday against Zero. So I think they're the underdogs going into this matchup. I mean, they already were by default, but I think L5 is looking at those matches from yesterday feeling pretty confident.
Yeah, I would agree. Tempest was playing against Zero Panda, though, and Zero Panda and E-Star even really busting out some different strategies that I don't think our Korean teams were expecting at all, especially Tempest. Once they got into the situation of this Zagara split pushing with Nidus on Brax's holdout, trying to take down keeps, you could tell that it put Tempest into a position where they just were panicking and did not make decisions very fast.
Absolutely. Tempest is not really known for their macro-oriented play. They're not known for the decision-making and dealing with split pushing or taking objectives very quickly, which is the opposite of L5, right? So you have these 2 styles clashing against each other here. You have the macro play, the run around the map, take objectives, control the map through vision, versus I'm just going to win a team fight post 20, and that's how I'm going to win the game, which is how Tempest defeated E-Star, for example, back in the summer 2016 global finals in Sweden. So I feel like when you look at these 2 teams colliding, it's all about the difference in styles, and if Tempest can actually win those late game fights, if they can survive to the late game and team fight well.
We are heading into that first match, Korea versus Korea. It is it should be noted that L5 only lost 2 games in all of HGC Korea, and MVP Black wasn't even one of the teams to take one of those games. It was Tempest, who were able to do enough in the early game, which seems to be the Achilles heel of L5, if you could even say that they have an Achilles heel.
Yeah, you know, in that very game, Tempest, essentially, it was Dragonshire, if I remember correctly. They just kind of played a super late game comp with Nazebo even, and forced those late game fights like I was talking about. I'm going to see these teams go up on stage here and greet each other and shake hands. And of course, these teams have played against each other already in HGC Korea this split, and they know each other very well. They've all been around the hero scene, with the exception of Modern Life, since the beginning. And, you know, for Tempest, I feel like Modern Life's one of the big stories going into this tournament. He was kind of a nobody, very unknown previously in Korea, and now he's starting off on Tempest. He's grown as a player quite significantly throughout HGC Korea. He looked like a kind of mediocre Ragnaros player, for example, at the beginning. A lot of people were really critical of saying, okay, well, if Tempest had almost anybody else, they'd be a stronger team in this tournament. By the end, though, of HGC Korea, he'd really stepped it up.
And Sign added to the team. Of course, we have the core 3 of the brothers with Lockdown and Hyde, and then Duck Duck, who's been playing with them when they even won the Summer Global Championship. But bringing on Sign, was this the first time that Sign was playing with a team that wasn't MVP Black, his old teammates?
Yeah, I mean, it was. And this is the first time you see him actually take a step away from Black. And when he made his announcement, he basically decided that he wanted to try something different. He'd been playing with his team for a long time, and he figured he'd kind of maxed out what he could do with MVP Black, so he wanted to take a step further. It's really reminiscent, when you see the way MVP Black broke up, it's very reminiscent of TNL breaking up. At some point, you plateau. You reach this point where you realize, okay, this roster just can't do anything more than it's doing right now. And even though we were successful in the past, it's time to move on. I think Sign has found a good home on Tempest, but I don't feel like he's on the level he was on Black on Tempest currently. I feel like he's still starting to, or rather still coming into that team synergy.
Yeah, it did seem like throughout HGC Korea, it was really the story of how Sign could mesh with those 3, as well as, like you mentioned, with Modern Life, trying to find his own spot really within the team, and then just in heroes in general, competitive heroes.
Sign, I feel like his biggest weakness right now is definitely his over-aggression in teamfights, especially his Murden. He's super aggressive. Doesn't even get third wind when he does it. Usually actually goes for the Q build instead, so he has, you know, more mana to be aggressive like that, but he often gets picked as a result or retreats and doesn't have the health to peel anymore. As we take a closer look at L5. Remember, this team won both BlizzCon, of course, under the name Ballistics, and then won the following Gold Club World Championship in China. So they're looking to defend their title of World Champions, you know, here in this Asian Eastern Clash, but also defend their title in China as they're back here once more. And they are the big favorites to win this tournament. They did not drop a single match in HGC Korea, as you mentioned. One of the games they dropped that was against this team. So they're going to have to take this match seriously. Look at this. I mean, here you go. World champions at Eastern Clash. We've got 3 of them, L5, Tempest, and MVP Black. What are you going to say? I mean, Korean teams are pretty good, Gillyweed.
They are very, very good, and they have shown up and shown that they continue to be good. We're going to take a look now at the members of Tempest. We've been talking a lot about them. Looking at this matchup, I'm keeping my eyes on the support players specifically. So Hyde versus Swoy of L5. Swoy has such incredible stats. He is the highest KDA, which is funny. It mirrors North American HGC in a lot of ways, because that is June who has the highest there too. And he's averaging 1 death per game, which is tied with Nacho Gen. But we look over at Hyde, and I remember a quote back at the Summer Global Championship where the team said, Hyde is our carry, which was at the time so unique to hear for a team that they felt that way about their support.
Yeah, the Korean fans were saying, you know, that they thought his Rhaegar was like a thrall. You know, it was like he's just so aggressive. You know, they're not sure which green hero he's playing here. So I feel like that's the key here. Hyde seems to have a much larger support pool than Swoy overall, so he usually just kind of defaults back to the Malfurion whenever it's available, whereas Hyde will actually deprioritize the Malfurion to get a stronger overall draft. And he can play any hero well, but he's most known, of course, for his Kharazim, especially historically, going all the way back to that summer season. And, you know, this player has been in Heroes of the Storm. He's been playing since the beginning of its life in Korea, so definitely a champion level player here, winner of that summer season. And let's take a look at our first map here in our bans. It's like Battlefield of Eternity banned, and actually, interestingly enough, Cursed Hollow as well as we go into Dragonshire. This is the same map that Tempest defeated L5 on in HGC Korea. So, and it is their map pick, so they're going to stick with what worked last time here, and we'll see if they try to kind of play that longer game, just try to stay even with L5, win that late game fight, because in Heroes of the Storm, you can win the early game, you can dominate it, you can snowball a game, but with your Tempest, oftentimes you just stay as even as you can, and because you just are so good mechanically in team fights, you win that 5-man wipe, and because you're so late in the game, the death timers are so long, you win as a result regardless of everything that happened before. If you can survive long enough to get to that point, that's often how they win games. That's how they defeated Zero, in fact, both games essentially, yesterday. So this is something to look at here as we go into Dragonshire, which is a map that normally does go to late game.
Yeah, I was going to echo that, is that it is one of the longest battlegrounds that we see in the HGC Battleground pool. Another important point as we start this first match, every match from here on out at the Eastern Clash is a best of 5. So the strategy changes immensely from what we saw yesterday.
Absolutely. Instantly, the Ariel ban coming down here first. Hyde also famous for being the first Ariel player in Korea when Ariel was released and became usable in Super League, so he's very known for his Ariel play. We see instantly Tyrael get locked in, so L5 has a plan here with this invulnerability, and we're going to see Tempest go ahead and lock in the ETC and Malfurion. Pretty rare to see Tempest actually prioritize Malfurion this early, but it's going to help them control the early game with ETC, with the root and the power slide, which can then lead to them just making sure they stay at least even in terms of pacing.
Do you think it's also perhaps a steal away from Sway, as you mentioned?
Yeah, I mean, it's definitely something that they're keeping in mind. I'd say it's that coupled with the fact that with ETC here, they have so much power over that early game. And, you know, it's a pretty quick draft so far. We see instantly the Falstad come down. That's for global. We saw Falstad super, super highly prioritized in Korea at the beginning of HGC, but towards the end, he had dropped down quite a bit. So to see him this highly here is quite interesting. Muradin, no surprise with Noblesse being the best Muradin in the world. And we'll see if he goes for the Q build here, if he's going to go into that third one, which is actually rising in popularity throughout this tournament. The Rhaegar ban here, quite interesting. They're doing a little bit of a support choke. Ariel's already removed.
Yeah, kind of taking advantage of the fact that Ariel was removed by L5 and then they didn't pick up a support there. So limiting what Soy will be able to play, especially with Tassadar out of the equation too. There is still the possibility of Zarya to try to supplement, and actually in having Tyrael at the top, L5 do have some shielding should they move toward possibly a Brightwing maybe. There are some other options too. Do you think maybe Morales would be more likely? I know Soy has played Brightwing in the past.
He definitely has played quite a bit of Brightwing in the past. It was his hero that he was kind of going to in even BlizzCon and the Global World Championship, but in Super League Season 3 as well. Zarya ban is no surprise here, but because Vala is still available, that would be an insanely good combo for them to pick up, especially with the early game comp. They already have ETC Malfurion, but I don't think this is going to be Brightwing. I think he's going to be forced to play Kharazim here. We'll see what Tempest drafts, but they're not going to be able to get that super powerful Vala comp they might have been looking for. And they may just go down that route anyways. There's still Gul'dan available in terms of damage right now as well, as they think about this one. There's no clear-cut answer, I'd say, for Tempest. I think the beginning of their draft was simply designed to choke out supports while taking that really strong CC early game. But in terms of damage, they still have a lot of options here.
Yeah, the Malfurion to me seems like Gul'dan, but really any mage will be able to provide wave clear, kill potential too to add to Malfurion and ETC, maybe even adding a Jaina, or we haven't seen, I don't think, kill Thas yet, but Ragnaros and Zeratul. So Tempest are going to pick up that combo that has really started to prevail with all three of our top Korean teams. You know, we saw L5 running yesterday. I would say it wasn't as smooth as MVP Black runs it, but we'll see how Tempest are able to combo Sulfur Smash and Void Prison.
Yeah, it's quite powerful if you can make it work. The key, which we saw was actually somewhat of an issue yesterday, is making sure that you actually have both heroics available at the same time, because we saw a few amazing Void Prisons where there was no Sulfur Smash available to combo with it. So positioning is important. Getting Zeratul into the right location like Kocha did several times yesterday versus Super Perfect team, that's the first step, but you have to have the Sulfurus available. And I know it sounds like an obvious statement, but it became somewhat of an issue yesterday in that match against SPT. So for L5 here, a strong melee assassin is still absolutely something they may be looking towards here. I mean, this wouldn't even necessarily be a bad time to lock in the Illidan. They've got Tyrael, and they can, okay, here's the Brightwing, and it's gonna be Zebo. This is almost identical to what we saw them play on Dragonshire, or rather what Tempest played against L5 on Dragonshire, which was the game they won in that previous series. So they're kind of giving Tempest a little bit of a taste of their own medicine here. The Brightwing is an old school tactic, so they're going to try to control the globals, control the macro. Again, this is the stylistic choice between these two. An aggressive early game. They've got Ragnaros, they've got Zeratul on Tempest side. They're going to go with the solo damage Li Ming, and L5 is just looking to rotate around the map, take objectives, and take a control of a later game.
So Tempest are, of course, trying to disrupt L5 in the early game. It comes down to that, especially once they hit that 10 power spike with their combo too, trying to maximize the damage that they do before Nazeebo starts to stack up and be able to put out damage that is just not able to be dealt with later on.
Yeah, it feels like at the beginning of the draft for Tempest, they tried to build into this draft that was leaning towards, okay, we're going to stay even in the early game because they know they're the underdogs here, right? So if we have this super aggressive CC-based comp in the early game, it's hard for them to tackle us and actually start to snowball the game into their favor, then use their macro play to control the map. And I think that L5 kind of turned the draft on its head because they're like, okay, if you want to push us to late game, we're going to take Nazeebo, we're going to have Bright, we're going to have 2 globals here, the Falstad as well. And I feel like L5 won this draft as a result.
What do you think that they're going to have to, like, how much do they have to be able to keep alive? Is it keeping alive all of their keeps by the time that they get into the late game that's key for them? Knowing the team, knowing how they operate?
I would say keeping the keeps alive shouldn't be an issue for them, but that's definitely something that they need to do, obviously. They want to just, again, it's going to be tough for them to get ahead. They're going to lose the early game most likely, but they're just going to play conservatively. Nazeebo's going to be rotating in the 4-man to get those stacks, to basically become a tank in the late game. It becomes tankier than a lot of tanks, if you go past level 20, which this map often does. Falstad's going to be able to solo lane quite a bit, get a lot of extra soak. And I'd say that there's a high chance we see Seasoned Marksman here at level 1 just because he can build that up. They're looking for the late game, and that just scales so well the longer the game goes on. Yeah,
for me, I'll be watching out for... I think it'll be Modern Life, again, playing the Zeratul.
It should be.
So then if we have Modern Life playing Zeratul, it's going to come down to how they can execute this combo, as it so often does when you see combos off of Void Prison, because there are a lot of disengagement tools on the side of L5 to be able to stop things. They've got Gust, they've got Sanctification too, maybe even Emerald Wind if Brightwing wants to go that route, just to make darn sure that they can disrupt whoever is going to be following up and trying to bring in the damage after that Void Prison.
And Nazeebo actually does quite a bit of damage as well. Nazeebo is considered to be kind of like this late game hero. He's got decent lane presence and he gets tanky, but if he goes down that spider path, which I think is very likely what we're going to see here, eventually you have this slow DOT damage that's coming out from Nazeebo, and you have that extra damage coming from Falstad, which is why we may see actually the burst mage Falstad as well, because you do that burst damage and Nazeebo just kind of finishes everyone off and they try to run away as they slowly die. It's a bit difficult to deal with that as well, especially because Malfurion has good single target healing, but his healing isn't that great against that AoE kind of spider slow DOT.
Yeah, I think we've been seeing more Seasoned Marksman later, but it does bring up a good point that if Nazeebo can start to put that dot damage on, that Falstad can finish them off with having Boomerang. And the other thing too is they have Tyrael, so he can also sort of jump in and get that damage if that's needed too. But it's going to be a very interesting Dragonshire, I think, from this. It's very clear cut what each team's goals are throughout the game.
Absolutely. Well, here's L5's lineup. Swoy's going to be on that Brightwing, Nitrogen on Falstad, SC on the Nazeebo Noblesse on Tyrael, and Jungha will be on Burden. So kind of a little bit of a swap there to have Noblesse on the Tyrael. He has played quite a bit of Tyrael in his career when Tyrael was being played as a solo warrior slash, third support oftentimes in that solo bruiser meta that Tempest actually won with essentially in the summer season of HGC 2016. Here they are, world champions, back here again to try to do it for the first time in China. And this lineup, we'll see, okay, it is going to be Lockdown on the Ragnaros here. Modern Life, as you mentioned, of course, on Zeratul, and Duck's Li Ming, which he's actually gotten quite famous for throughout Season 3 of Super League and then going into HGC Korea. Played very strong Li Ming. And look, this is a tough match to call from the outset in terms of drafting. I feel like L5 got what they wanted in draft, but the draft of Tempest here is still very powerful.
I agree. I was maybe expecting a different mage follow-up than Li Ming, trying to be able to add to the team's wave clear, but then again, it is Korea, and Li Ming is always a favorite there.
All right, guys, well, it looks like we are set to jump into game number 1, L5 versus Tempest here at the Eastern Clash.
안녕하세요. 저는 L5의 탱커를 맡고 있는 노블레스.
안녕하세요. 저는 L5 팀에서 메인 딜러를 맡고 있는 SCSC입니다.
저희는 오기 전에 연습을 좀 했고 완벽하진 않지만 좀 이번 대회는 부담 없이 할 생각이에요.
일단 엠블랙이랑 이스타랑만 연습을 좀 하다 왔어요. 근데 두 팀은 약간 저희랑 포함해서 세 팀은 다 실력이 그냥 비슷한 것 같아요. 메타도 다 맞춰가는 것 같고, 네, 그렇게 세 팀이랑만 좀 아는 것 같아요, 서로.
이번에도 대회에서 만나게 되는데 좋은 승부했으면 좋겠고 재밌게 게임하다가 갔으면 좋겠어요.
All right, here we go. In red, it's going to be Tempest, Duck on Li Ming, Sign on ETC, Lockdown on Ragnaros, Modern Life on Zeratul, and Hyde on Malfurion here for Tempest.
And in blue, L5 with Nachogen playing Falstad, SCSC on Nazebo, Jungha playing Muradin, Swoy on Brightwing, and Noblesse playing Tyrael.
Okay, it's going to be that Stormbolt level 1 to reduce the mana and to, of course, eventually end up with a lot more extra damage. And it's the Marksman Falstad. So we expected it was going to be the Spider Nazebo and the Marksman Falstad, but there was always the potential that we would see the Mage Falstad. One of the cool things about having Tyrael on your team as Falstad, hold that thought. This is the level 1 I was talking about for Tempest. Noblesse taking a ton of damage here. He just barely gets out. There's the kill onto Ragnaros counterwise, so first blood does go to L5. One of the cool things about Falstad having Marksman with Tyrael is when Sanctification goes up, it allows Nachogen to actually get in auto attack range safely. You can just sit there and do free damage while he's in Sanctification, similar to how a Greymane would. Obviously, doesn't function exactly the same way. He doesn't dive directly in like that, but he's very powerful in such a manner. As we see a Stormbolt connect here with Duck and some spiders as well, but he will retreat.
Great roots by Hyde to get Duck out of trouble there. And Tempest are trying to use this early game, early picks composition that they have, but so far it's been L5 who've been able to pick up the first blood, but there's still plenty of time for Tempest to be able to get those picks that they're trying to get to run the battleground so far. They've got Tyrael versus Ragnaros in the top lane. I wondered with the season marksman if maybe we would see Falstad trying to solo lane up in the top versus Ragnaros, but instead Tyrael's going to be up there, so he's going to do his best versus Ragnaros. And he does all right in that solo lane.
He absolutely does, and Tyrael's always a tough solo laner to lane against in terms of lane pressure because of his shields that the mains provide to. As you can see, Nachogen actually that ends up the solo laner here as the rotation goes up to top. John comes up, and Nachogen goes in for the fly, and Lockdown, he is not getting out of here. Down he goes. And Lockdown is actually, very well known for his solo laning on Sonya specifically, career-wise. So he's normally a really safe solo laner. But I think that kind of lane swap there threw them off. They didn't see that rotation coming, and of course they weren't really thinking about the Falstad flight coming in. So that's going to be some extra season marksman stacks there with that takedown for Falstad. And sometimes you do see just the Tyrael solo laner in the early game, and then the Falstad becomes a solo laner later on when you're doing rotations because of his global. So I think that's what we're going to see here. Sign will power slide away. He needs to avoid this Stormbolt. Looks like he's not even going to use it here, so we're going to see the fight turn down here to the bottom. Nachogen overextends, though. Duck looking for the pick. It's not going to happen, though. Turns around here, just barely dodges, and Jungha going to come in, gets the kill here onto Malfurion, but down goes Swoy counterwise.
Modern Life still jumping in, trying to get the kill onto Jungha, but somehow Jungha stays alive. through that. And once again, this early kills not working out in the way of Tempest. They started maybe being able to get Falstad, but really good body blocking by the team of abilities too to make sure that Falstad could get out. Is it weird to you to see Jungha on Murden and Noblesse on Tyrael?
Yes, because Jungha is normally kind of the quote-unquote bruiser of the two types of warriors. He normally plays those melee assassins as well. So to see him actually play the Murden is interesting. I think the role of Murden is being changed quite a bit. A lot of people are using him more aggressively recently, especially with that third one we're seeing a lot. But yeah, it's a little bit strange. Noblesse, I'd say overall career-wise has more Tyrael experience, but I mean, Noblesse has been playing he's been playing for so long, so of course he has more experience on this hero. But hold that thought. We're gonna see this power slide in, and down goes Nachogen, blown up in an instant, and that's real frustrating here for L5 as Tempest takes yet another kill. Speaking of Nachogen, he's actually going into lifesteal at level 4, which again really pairs with that Tyrael Sanctification. This is what I like to talk about a lot. You can actually engage with Falstad at low health into a Sanctification with this auto attack build with the lifesteal, and by the time Sanctification runs out, you've already healed up a lot of your life pool just simply because you have that super powerful lifesteal. So I really like this composition when you have Falstad to go into the auto attack and into that level 4.
He's still going to get Boomerang though, so he'll still be able to try to follow up with hammering once members of the team start getting low. But I think in seeing Tyrael with Noblesse and knowing how Noblesse likes to play, he loves to play in the backline of his opponents. He loves to push the limits like you and I talked about yesterday of how long he can stay in fights. So being able to have either Jungha or Noblesse who can get into the backline, try to draw some of the resources of your opponents away from Falstad and Nazebo, they should be able to find a lot of success with getting the kills they need.
I think that's absolutely true. And Nazebo, I mean, doesn't do burst damage per se, but with full spiders as he's going here from 1 to 7, it does start to stack up. It almost feels like burst DOT, something like Lunara would do. Oh no, Lockdown gets caught here and actually hesitates on the retreat. Nachogen's coming up. This is going to be yet another pick on our solo laner. Lockdown getting caught uncharacteristically here. Again, when you think of safe solo laners, you think of Rich most of the time, right? You don't think of H82 when you think about Korea on this, but you do think about Lockdown's Sonya specifically, and this is just uncharacteristic mistakes out of him on the Rag.
Yeah, it is difficult though when you're playing Ragnaros in this early game because you want to be able to get that level 1 quest, Sulfurous Hunger, stacked up as fast as possible. But in losing so many of these kills, getting caught in rotations, getting caught too far out in the lane, trying to move out and get those minion kills, it is starting to put Tempest behind, solely because of all of these kills and faster rotations that L5 have been making with their globals.
Definitely so. You can see Nazebo getting that spider quest here pretty early, just before 6 minutes, and L5 does have a nice EXP lead. So Tempest is going to have to really step it up here once they get 10, but it's going to be difficult to stop the first Dragonite once 10 is reached here for L5, as they're actually going to channel right now, going to start to set up for that heavy commitment to mid. You can see Tempest actually rotating Sign back down here to actually prevent this. That was a close call. If they hit 10 now, if they had controlled this, they might be able to just squat it with Jungha and then channel the Dragonite. They're going to go up here and do so now. Tempest with the rotation mid to deny. As you can see, Modern Life here just going to threaten Nachogen, but as a result gets caught. So Jungha whiffs a huge Stormbolt, but there's just too much pressure here. They will squat with Brightwing actually on the bottom lane, and Nachogen just going to unleash this Dragonite. Not much Tempest can do without heroics, but also note, L5 didn't use a single one in order to take this Dragonite, so they still have all their cooldowns off.
It was also very terrifying because there's only one member in each of the bottom and top lane. So they could move on to the point, yes, Ragnaros could try to move on the point, but Tyrael could either jump over and squat, or all of a sudden Tyrael's there, Falstad just flies up, and L5 get even further ahead and getting a kill and getting more experience. So really great job putting Tempest into this spot where they had to just let this Dragonite go. But thankfully they have Molten Core. Should they want to defend, they ended up not getting to use it there. And Gust is going to, again, let L5 disengage. This is what we're talking about. L5 has so many disengagement tools.
Absolutely, which allows them to be super hyper-aggressive like that. Nachogen didn't even have to terminate his own Dragonite there because he had barrel roll, so he actually did the maximum amount of damage until it even completely died there before evacuating. We're going to see these Siege Giant camps are traded 1 for 1. with L5 taking theirs, Tempest getting theirs at the same time. They're actually going to rotate up to get bruisers right now, which actually relieves a lot of lane pressure. So L5 is just going to clear waves right now. Remember, Nazeebo does a lot of damage. He's still, you know, technically a specialist, right? So he actually pushes lanes really hard, and he's just building up, you know, his trait, his voodoo, to get that tankier health pool going into this mid game. And we talk about how strong he is in the late game, but even in the mid game, he starts to get quite healthy. You know, healthier in scaling than really any other specialist.
Yeah, what's frustrating is how he's able to stall minion waves and drain ammo with just his abilities, his basic abilities, being able to throw out his zombie wall. And that bottom lane is starting to take damage. Up in the top, though, finally Tempest putting some structural damage down of their own with the bruiser camp. L5 are going to pick theirs up too. We'll see if they want to do the same, try to push along with them. They do have those globals who could push along with it, but they're going to face an issue of needing to defend in bottom.
Yeah, this is one of the advantages to taking an early camp. Yes, it doesn't time, the early camp doesn't time out with the shrines, so it looks weak in that regard, but it allows you, with that extra pressure in the top lane, to then take the neutral camp. So you get both camps. The second camp times out better with the shrines, so you have that extra pressure there. They're down a talent tier, but this camp pressure is going to be really frustrating for L5 to deal with, and so they should be able to secure at least one of the shrines currently as they clear this mid wave. They're probably going to rotate bot to look for that one. Meanwhile, Falstad actually very aggressively positioned against Lockdown up there in the top lane, and actually that's where they're going to rotate up right now. Tempest rotating all 5 up to that location, and Nitrogen is just going to leave. So this is actually a wasted rotation after all, as they're not able to find any picks, and they're missing EXP bot during this. And they need that EXP very badly because they don't have 13.
Yeah, the issue is that Sign didn't pick stage dive, so he can't split away from the team to soak as easily. They are having Ragnaros continue to stay up in the top lane now, and Zeratol's rotated to the bottom, but they were hoping to maybe catch somebody in rotations to either of the lanes to get kills. So with Sign devoting his heroic ability to Mosh, but they are fully committing to trying to win the team fight here. There is Sulfure's smash, but Gust too.
Total waste. So this is a very poor rotation. This is the weakness of Tempest. Their macro play is just simply not as strong as L5's. Rotations like this are costly, not only in the heroic wasted there on the Sulfure's, but the fact they didn't get a kill on EXP. They're going to commit so much here to finally get the kill onto Swoy. But you have to see when the dust settles here, was this even worth it? You really have to question, because look, Nitrogen's still getting so top that they're missing. They're getting this EXP lead. They're looking for the late game anyways. They have a Nazeebo composition, so losing Swoy here, they're absolutely okay with it. They're not going to lose a Dragon Knight either. So many resources committed here for Tempest, and in fact, Modern Life jumped on here. So much spider damage, he will have to retreat, but L5 is just kind of out-rotating, out-playing the map right now, which is what they're so famous for. They're not known for their mechanics in team fighting, although they're not bad at that. That's what Tempest is more known for, but it doesn't matter if they just get out-rotated over and over again. The fact that Nitrogen survived in the top lane was a huge problem for Tempest there.
Yeah, they really needed that second pick to try to get a Dragon Knight in the time that people were down. Now Tempest down a level, or half a level to L5, still trying to move in. There is Void Prison still available. Sign's gonna jump in. Sulfure's smash shows. L5 gets Noblesse away, just barely Sanctification. They're gonna try to turn this fight around.
Okay, we're gonna see if they can actually turn this here. With Void Prison, they're not gonna get much. Unfortunately, Sulfure's on cooldown, as mentioned before, because of the commitment earlier. So Void doesn't actually pair with anything here, so that's a very long cooldown heroic use. Don't forget, Mosh Pit still has 40 seconds to go because of that commitment to kill Swoy earlier. Meanwhile, Lockdown's going to get caught here once more in between top and mid as the Junga comes in for the dive. They're just trying to zone for Nitrogen to get the channel. He doesn't get it, but they get a really good trade as a result. Lockdown cannot be poking like this. He's actually going to pay for it with his life potentially. Just barely gets out, but they're going to lose the Dragon Knight regardless. And L5 just is so good at controlling zoning. Junga coming in there to make sure this is going to happen. And any trade that happens because they're just trying to chip at the Dragon Knight doesn't end up being worth it, and they lose it anyways.
Mid fort destroyed. The team will rotate in. They've already started rotating in to take out the bottom one too. And with it being so low, thanks to the constant pressure put on by that 4-man earlier on with Nazeebo, they're going to be able to do even more damage, looking at opening up the push for later on toward the bottom keep.
This is somewhat disastrous for Tempest that they're they're so far behind right now against this already late game comp. We're going to see the commitment here to Noblesse. He will get taken down here. This is the beginning of potentially a nice comeback for them. ETC going down as well, though.
And Hyde. Oh, the Gust maybe actually saving Hyde here. And Molten Core to come out to stop any further aggression toward the keep.
Yeah, way too aggressive here. L5 getting punished. Oh, Jungha trying to survive here. He just barely will. Does Torf Toss away. Doing all of this, mind you, without popping Avatar, so very aware of exactly how much health he needed to survive there. And they're actually just going to use this retreat to take the neutral bruiser camp in bot. And they're going to set up Tyrael respawns in 5. Modern Life comes in here to check, but knows the positioning of Jungha. Immediately going to punch this. They're going to jump onto him. There's the poly. And Jungha jumps in one more time, and they have a gust available as well. Actually, no, 20 seconds on that. They must have forgotten they didn't have it, because that was a big mistake. I mean, this is a commentator's curse, right? But I look up and I'm like, oh, I guess he doesn't, but I'm pretty sure he thought he did.
Oh, and the Sulfurious Smash. Swoy's going to go down too. This is the opening Tempest needed to at least abuse L5 going after the camp. It's exactly what they needed. They had to make some sort of play. It was really rough for them when they lost Sign too to Archangel's Wrath. They were trying to maybe go in and see if they could get Mosh for further kills, but that's a mistake. That was rough for L5.
Yeah, that was the, I guess, gust attempt. At least that's what I'll just say to maybe help him save face for what just happened there. Definitely didn't do them any favors. Had they had gust there, that could have been an incredible play. Unfortunately, though, he just kind of simply flew in to die. L5 will still get this camp, actually, which is pretty nice for them considering they had several dead, and they're just going to get it for free. And Tempest doesn't really gain anything from this. They had to still deal with that bottom bruiser pressure. Despite winning the fight, that was lane pressure they had to deal with. And they rotate back. So could have been worse for L5. Sometimes getting kills doesn't matter if you can't do anything with that. And for L5, they're very fortunate that was the case.
Activate the shrine.
Shrines are starting now, and with pressure in every single lane. Again, it's Tempest who will be on the back foot for this phase. Sign tries to dive in. No Bless jumps out with Eldruin's Might, though.
Trying to get these holy grounds here to perhaps catch someone. Look at the zoning here. Already L5 moving in. Jungha's up at the front to start this channel. Lockdown's going onto that top shrine right now. Noblesse is going to channel first. He gets denied. And Lockdown actually should take this away just before. Oh, barely not. So close there, but it was not enough. And Noblesse will get the Dragon Knight. And this is super powerful. They already opened up that bot keep wall, and it looks like they were considering heading there. Some indecision here from Noblesse. Decides to go mid instead to minimize the distance traveled here. They're going to get EXP from this keep wall regardless. It's going to help push them towards 20. And this is a great opportunity for L5 to potentially grab a keep.
Getting that Dragon Knight was great teamwork. An exhibition of great teamwork from L5. Hold that thought, though, because Lockdown's going to sit right in the middle, tearing L5 apart with this Molten Core. However, it has been used now. Noblesse starting to lose out on the Dragon Knight, though, so shouldn't be able to take advantage of the fact that Molten Core is down too much. Sign still looking for the flank, looking to see where members of L5 will be grouped up if he can get a Void Prison. Same for Modern Life if he can get the Void Prison, ETC for the Mosh Pit. But yeah, what I was talking about, them being able to get this Dragon Knight was so good. They had one person to body block and be able to soak the magic missiles, and then Jungha coming in with the Stormbolt at the right time just to make sure, to ensure that they're able to pick up this Dragon Knight, and L5 maintains their lead because of it.
Yeah, and Tempest tried to have Lockdown channel the top shrine. He just barely didn't get it in time. You could see him on the minimap. He was sitting there, and he was probably milliseconds away from denying that channel. It just did not happen. So that's really unfortunate, because then he's out of position. He's late for the Molten Core. He comes down, uses it to stop the Dragon Knight from doing any keep damage, but L5's already pushing towards 20, and Jungha is being hyper-aggressive here. Comes in at the beginning of the fight. Modern Life is going to punish him for it a little bit here. He's actually committing right now, but they can turn this fight. Modern Life does need to back off. And it looks like this is going to kind of end up being a neutral fight. Remember, if L5 gets just another mini wave or a kill, they're going to hit 20. And Modern Life really wants this pick, but it's going to be a mistake to continue to try this. Oh, so close to that holy ground, too. All right, 20 on the horizon here for L5. Tempest not too far behind. It's so critical that they were able to keep their keeps alive. And they can buy a little bit more time here. They don't want a team fight until they have 20. They're about a third of the way there, or
but
a
now,
third missing.
Epic Mount for Falstad is going to be even more trouble and difficulty for Tempest. Looking at the rest, double Wormhole, which is really uncommon for Brightwing, but she will have even more charges of being able to blink heal. And Vile Infection, of course, that's the big one for Nazebo, being able to up. We can't see his stacks. Maybe this, I was going to see if maybe that was it, but this does show that Seasoned Marksman is done for Falstad. So another big jump in damage.
Yeah, huge power spike here. Noblesse always looking for these holy grounds. Actually going to get rooted here, but there's no follow-up, so he will be fine. As it is just solo damage, leaving essentially in terms of range here. And the siege that Nazeebo provides is actually going to be something that is going to be an issue overall as this game goes longer, because he can help push down these lanes and then push down the keeps while Falstad pushes up. So they need to deal with Falstad somehow. Because he has Epic Mount, he can be a lot more mobile. And even 4v5 sieging, L5 has the better comp for this. So I really like the position they're in the late game, and that's what they're trying to do with this draft. But Jonga does get caught right now, barely gets a door toss away, and that was a close call. Had any CC been used and that was interrupted, he was almost certainly dead. And this is, you know, a 4v5 fight that L5 has control over. Falstad's going to fly in. They're going to look for the fight instead of the channel here. Sign comes in.
Torba's right on top of Brightwing, but he's so far away from the rest of the team because of the gust. ETC is eliminated. Void Prison on the back, but still, all of Tempest are just trying to run away at this point, and they're not going to get it. Zeratol taken out. Ice Block for now. Sulfura Smash tries to do what he can, and Lockdown's even going to channel, but as soon as this gets taken out, so will Lockdown.
Absolutely, it's so made Tempest with death timers this late into the game super long. They're going to push this issue real far. They have the Bruiser camp to support as well. Noblesse pushing forward right now, clearing this minion wave. All that's left in their way is Duck Sleeming, and he's going to try as he might to slow this down, but it's going to be very difficult, nigh impossible to do it, as Nitrogen also has the Dragon Knight. This will be game over. No way. No matter how good Duck Sleeming is here, there's no way he stops this push. L5 will win here in the late game at level 21, 11 kills to 7. Game number 1 on Dragonshire.
You know, I have to wonder. Tempest had everything that they needed, and they were 5v4 for a little bit. Yes, Falstad can fly down, but what else were they going to do? They were all grouped up in the bottom lane. That seemed like as good as a chance as they were going to get there, Wolf.
It really did, and they committed to Torbus. It looked like they really wanted to take a fight, but unfortunately Torbus only hit 1. If they had a really nice mosh pit there, the solo damage Leeming gets a kill, gets a reset, and then suddenly this fight pops off, and no matter how quickly Falstad flies in with Epic Mount, they're still going to be at a disadvantage once that fight goes in their favor, once they get a good kill with Leeming. All they need really is 1. And then from then on, they could win the fight. Unfortunately, though, they were a bit timid. Looks like maybe even some communication issues there in comms to try to make that fight happen, because it felt a little bit disjointed.
Yeah, there were definitely some issues with that, how far away the mosh was from the rest of the team and the gust. And we already had mentioned that there were so many ways to disengage from the wombo combo that Tempest was going for, that I kind of wonder if maybe stage dive to keep up with Falstad would have been the better option. But we're going to have more time to be able to talk about this in Theorycraft as we get ready for Game 2 right after this break. See you soon.